Well, hello and welcome to another episode of the Geeks Group. Today, as usual, with my co-host Josie. Hi, Josie.
Hello.
And today we have a treat for you. We have a special guest. His name is Surya Potharaju, and he is the CEO of Arka Energy. Surya, welcome to the podcast.
Hello. Very nice to
Welcome.
meet both of you.
It's great to have you. So Surya and I and Josie, we had a very, very intriguing conversation before. Surya is in the energy space, and he is one of the advocates for consumer energy, and he's doing it in style. So I'm really, really excited about this podcast. Um,
You know, renewable energy is sexy. I know
Right.
not to a lot of people, but it really is. It really is going to open up a lot of doors, and it's really going to get us to the zero carbon emission footprint sooner than we think, I think. It's definitely a lever that we can utilize, and that is being, well, it's already utilized, but I think the adoption rate can be a little bit faster. And through some of these organizations, hopefully they can.
well, you see, that's the question is, it's sexy. It's the word of the day. We still need to know why does it matter, right? We still need to know why is it important. A lot of people hear it. It's a fab word, but why does it matter?
And I think some people, I don't know, especially Hispanics, are afraid of asking, hey, wait a minute, what is it exactly? How does it work? What are the nuts and bolts? How much does it cost? So we'll be taking on some of those topics, taboo topics, and kind of get a little bit more informed on the subject about it today.
Yeah. So, Surya, it's you're the subject matter expert. Um, Tell us about why does solar energy matter?
Yeah, thank you for having me. And just to emphasize the point, I think the transitions to renewables really tackles climate change, and it also has become economical at this point to really have solar. So why it's important is a good question, because I think at this point people have heard enough about solar but have never realized that it is beneficial for you, and going green just makes you a lot of green and saves you a lot of green. So I think that's why it's important. But on the other hand, I think as we are seeing the transitions and continuous impact of fossil fuels and the lack of energy independence in many countries really struggles and stifles the economy. So I think it's very important for us to think seriously about renewable energy and solar in particular. And to get back to the importance of solar, to give you some data points, solar actually has its cost going down by about 90% in the last 15 years. So we started off with like really expensive solar, but now solar is so cheap. It's the lowest cost of electricity. And the Department of Energy actually runs an annual benchmarking survey, and the parameter they watch is called the levelized cost of electricity, the LCOE. And if you look at it, solar has the lowest LCOE, and it's continuously falling. So the reason why solar is important is that it's cheapest source of energy, it's abundant, and it really is a big step towards energy independence. And for all those reasons and more, one has to be really thinking seriously about solar at the homes, in businesses, and at communities, and even at the macro level, right? So that's why.
To add to that, everything, ditto, everything he just mentioned. But in addition to that, we have more people in the world today than we ever have. And we're 2030, 2040, it's not going to change. We're going to be hitting 11 billion people. And if we're already having issues with energy and we don't fix them now, can you imagine with the new population coming in, how are we going to be able to sustain everything that we have? So I think it's important, and it matters now.
And it also matters, I believe, energy independence matters more in third world countries and rural areas than they do in developed countries where there's already a grid. I think it will bring a level of human development to pretty much the world that's going to be at an equity with the Western world. So I think it's super important to make it affordable, but also make sure that people understand that it doesn't it doesn't have to be complicated, because the reality is the way it's being delivered or sold today is probably more complicated than it should be.
I think in addition to that, I think it's not just going to be one source of alternate energy, it's going to be a variety of them. Solar just happens to be mature. The industry is ready, you know?
Yeah, definitely. And I think, there are significant advances, and going back to its roots in semiconductor technology, solar can provide a lot of value. And it can be done in many levels. It can be done at the home, it can be done at the community level, and it can be done at the utility level. So the ability for solar to address energy generation with significant economic benefits and environmental benefits really puts solar at the forefront. And I would always advise, and I tell that, and I'm a proponent for solar. I'm not against anybody else in the renewable energy sector, right? I mean, I'm pro geothermal, I'm pro wind, I'm pro for anything. And I even think that the having other traditional energy generation in the mix is always going to be advantageous, because like you mentioned, energy needs are constantly growing. And as we see some of the transformations happening, right? I mean, the EV revolution happening, the energy needs are just going to keep growing. And so to address all of those factors, energy needs and keeping the energy costs lower and serving a larger population, all of them need better solutions. And I think that's where solar has an important role to play.
It's hard to believe that everybody knows about solar, everybody wants solar, but just pulling the trigger on getting it, right? Uh, that's definitely what's slowing down the adoption. Why do you think why are people hesitant? Why are people that are in favor of solar are hesitant on pulling the trigger on getting it?
Yeah. So this is very interesting, and I think there was a seminal article in the Harvard Business Review in 2019 that really pushed me pretty hard to think about it. Right, the title of the article was "The Elusive Green Consumer." So in a poll, they had actually found that 46% of people readily support and actively want renewable energy. But we have seen that number, when it transitions to actual actions, actually falls down to single digits, lower single digits actually. And so we have been a little concerned about okay, where is the gap, right? And so the two things that people have come about to understand was uh, the way we have given and we have sold solar is solely on the value proposition of energy savings. And the single most thing, the other biggest thing that we have done is we have taken an industrial product, a regular solar panel that comes with its rectangular shapes and just gets fit in, gets literally slapped in on the roof as a direct product that you would do, whether it's in the field in a utility scale project or whether it's the home. So you have taken an industrial product and asked consumers to buy it, and they are concerned about aesthetics, right? We can take the parallel analogy of how the first EVs were made really attractive. I mean, to allay the concerns about the EV and the range anxiety, companies like Tesla have done really smart things by presenting it as a futuristic car. That has not been done for consumer solar, and especially the place where we thought that the adoption rates were really poor. We have struggled with trying to make this attractive to homeowners. So aesthetics is an important aspect. How we sell and how the consumer experience is involved is very important to selling solar at the home to homeowners. Last but not the least, I mean, our confidence level in presenting this technology as an attractive alternative with a value proposition that goes beyond just savings is what really was what was not done correctly in the phase of the last 15 years. So what we are thinking about is as we draw from it, right? It is important to think about this as a normal product that we would sell to a homeowner. So it's going to require consumerization of this one. This needs to be made attractive to the homeowners, and that has been the real challenge. We have not done, and as an industry, we have really tried never to do it. The customer experience, it's talked about a lot in the solar industry. The cost of customer acquisition is pretty high because of that 46% to 5% gap, right? 46% people supporting it, but only 5% people buying it. And the gap is explained by the fact that the consumer experience is scary and customer acquisition costs are high. So this vicious cycle just keeps continuing, and then we try to fight it at the symptom level, not at the root cause level. And this seminal paper from Harvard Business Review really delves deeper into the aspects because it's all about consumer psychology and how we make the product relevant to the homeowner, how we make the product relevant to the homes, and then try to like customize it and improve the value proposition. So I think therein lies the secret to really increasing adoption.
So basically, we're missing the cool factor.
It's a little more than cool factor. It's actually like giving people a good understanding of what they are getting, right? And to just put a finer point on it, right? If I just sell the product as saying that, hey, put solar on your roof, slap it on it, we'll come and do it for you at $3 a watt. It's going to save you like $250. You would say, yeah, that's a good deal. And then once the thing is out there, you never really know about it. And then if you sell your house in 6 years, the new owner is really ignorant about it, and then they do not read. So there is no product empathy. There is no product experience in here. And the value proposition is just one line: energy savings, lower your energy costs. Now there is the lack of empathy and the lack of experience with the product does not really make you go after the product. You have to be sold the product. It does not make me want to go buy it.
It's just, we noticed that, like, how many times you have solar guys knocking your door, and it's kind of like it's like a door-to-door sales job. You feel like you're being sold, and I don't think anybody has a good experience buying solar. What do you think?
Well, I mean,
You've
I'll
been
tell
through that
you,
recently?
yeah, I mean, I'll tell you my experience with solar and kind of just the general consumer. 5 years ago, it just didn't make sense. 5-10 years ago, it didn't make sense cost-wise. The savings that you were going to be receiving, and, for a lot of millennials, it was our starter home. And I said, you know what, once I'm only going to stay here 5 years or so, it doesn't make sense. So the value proposition of cost saving versus the initial investment versus when I'll receive that investment in return, it just wasn't strong enough. As you mentioned, it was the only pain, and I was like, it's a nice thing, but it's not an urgent thing. Life gets in the way, right? There was no urgency on to make that change, and the value proposition just wasn't strong enough, right? And as we get older, we move into our homes that are our forever homes, and then it starts to make sense. But again, the value proposition is the same. We installed solar over 2 years ago. I forget we have it. I don't see it. That empathy, it's like, oh, wait a minute. Yeah, we did move to solar, right? Oh, it did save us a little bit on electricity. Okay, yeah, all right, I see it. But there's no correlation. I don't get to see it. There's not that pride that I get of seeing it and kind of making that.
And also, you get the feeling that it's a taboo, that it's something that, yeah, it's cool to have, but nobody wants you to have it. For example, the weirdest thing was everybody's going EV. Everybody's energy demand is higher than ever. The utility companies keep complaining about strain on the power grid. Then when you're about to install solar, well, sorry, we cap you at 125% of your use. I'm like, what? Like, if we get 3 electric vehicles, that's 200% of my current use. Why am I being capped if you keep complaining about the grid being overwhelmed and and fires and all that? Like, it's things don't gel very well.
So yeah, I mean, there are some policy disconnects. There are significant consumer experience lapses, even with companies that have actually run this one. Even if you look at the consumer solar today or the residential solar segment today, the companies that are involved are either financing companies or component companies. There are no solutions companies. And the reason these three are different is a solutions company creates a brand, right? If I can take the analogy from the original laptops, right? I mean, there was a bunch of people who actually wanted to just make computers and laptops, and they had to buy the chips and the main boards, motherboards, and they could slap something together and everybody could have a laptop. But the reason why laptops are so ubiquitous and cost effective and efficient is because there are solutions companies like HP, Lenovo, or Apple We have not done that. So the consumerization here is significantly lacking. And as you bring up the point, policy also has been a little haphazard in a way. Policies have always focused on what is relevant to the Department of Energy goals, and then they were doing a lot of the incentives and other things for large projects, the financing that was required. I mean, we were too anxious to like make an impact too fast, and so the policies at the real impact level, at the home level, have really been significantly short, in my opinion. Um, and to put that in perspective, right? I mean, stuff like that you mentioned, it's capped at 125% of current consumption. But this product lasts 25 years. When was the last time some technology that was 25 years old relevant to you? Never. And so if I'm going to have move towards EVs, right? I mean, it's going to be significantly changing. So you now have to plan for something that's going to make you energy independent, relevant, attractive, all of that at the same time. And that I think is a challenge. And I think we are not thinking about that challenge. And many companies that are still in the market today, selling components and financing options, are still not thinking the same way. I mean, they do not want to like take a transformational change and really improve the customer experience. So we'll still be scratching this 3.7% adoption for a little bit more. Every year, there are 2 million homes built in the US, and hardly solar is growing at like 700, trying to play a catch up. I mean, soon in the US alone, there will be 100 million single family homes eligible for solar by 2030. And then we would again, be at the same 3.7 because we are not growing at any factor. My point being, this requires a transformational change wherein certain technologies that we have really got need to be brought together and solutions be presented to the customers rather than just having one line value propositions in the form of energy savings. That's, I think, fundamentally the differentiation that we want to bring in.
Obviously, the solution part is a multifaceted, multi-party initiative, right? A lot of people have to get together talking, even from policy all the way to installation. There's a lot of people that need to actually work together to eliminate the disconnect that you mentioned, which is yeah, it's obvious. If anybody's gone through consumer solar installation, you'll feel that disconnect. But it's important to each one of us can at least do their part. And now I want to talk a little bit about Arka, because you actually did mention something important, is that we have to change people's perspective on how they view solar. So. Tell us about that. Tell us about Arka's value proposition, because I think it's very interesting how you guys are tackling the perspective challenge.
So the most important thing that we have done is to focus on solutions and trying to make solar value proposition not be a single line energy savings, but something that the customers can experience, and right from how it builds value to them. Right. So for Arka, our solutions are mainly fully integrated solutions where we have our own tiles, our own structures, and our own power electronics that we procure and provide a kit to the installer partners so that they can actually like get a solar installation done in a single day. Now, the first advantage of Arka is that the value proposition is built into 5 different additional layers, right? The first one is that it seamlessly blends into your home in the form of a backyard upgrade or a complete roof transformation. So the first value proposition is that you are going to be proud because if you walk into your patio, there is an extended living space that's aesthetically built, and you would do it anyway as part of your house, but now this patio is actually having 4 kilowatts or 5 kilowatts of solar that could offset like 60%, 70% of your energy needs for a regular 2,000 square foot home. That's the first part. It seamlessly blends. The other thing that happens when you do integrated structures with BIPV is that it increases the value of your home, not just because it has solar, but because you have extended living space. We will share with you some of our marketing collateral, but a power gazebo is a backyard upgrade. And if somebody wants to walk over into the backyard and see a park gazebo, they actually would see a nice aesthetic extended living space under which you could have families and friends get together and have fun, forgetting the fact that it actually is generating energy and paying for itself. So the second incremental thing in our value proposition is whatever money you spend on getting this par patios and par gazebos is instantly built into your home. So you are not just seeing a structure that's slapped on the roof, and you're not just getting the value proposition of energy savings. You're actually getting a utilizable space that will extend your home's value and significantly increase your home's value. So the customers are no longer thinking that, okay, I'm going to go solar and forget about it, but I'm going to experience a product that is built in it. So we are bringing solar closer to it and make it appealing for homeowners. So case in point, a lot of the first adopters and feedback that we got from our customers was like they were more interested in the options they have on the power gazebos and the power patios than they actually wanted to know how the solar is going to perform and how much energy it's going to save, right? So this is this fundamental change in consumer psychology that we are doing. Uh, then come the value propositions of like having extended living spaces. Then come the value proposition of like, taking advantage of the incentives that are provided to cover the costs, the advantages that you have into tapping into your home's equity to like pay for solar. And last but not the least, you still have all of the traditional solar benefits. It's a 25-year product. It's going to lock your interest rates. It's going to constantly offset your, energy costs. And then it's going to freeze your energy costs and make them lower, if not anything else. And all of it without you losing a dime and worrying about your return on investment. So suddenly we have changed the proposition from when am I going to get my money back to like, okay, this is a slam dunk. I have already added value to my home and I've already put money back in my pocket. In addition, I get the tax incentives. In addition, I get the energy savings. And by the way, I can go have, fun, during the summer months or winter months, and I can even have some extended use for it. So our next products are also going to increase these values. So we are looking at places where solar becomes an experience rather than a simple cost savings measure.
I just keep on thinking of what Steve Jobs was able to do to the personal computer and make it sexy, right? Going back to that word. And, the power gazebo, I would see myself having a conversation, having afternoon lunch or tea or wine with my friends and having that be a conversation starter where it's like, oh, I see that you adopted solar. Yeah, we're eating under it, where, it becomes part of our identity, right? And it makes it cool.
Yeah, and also it's a solar champion.
Right.
Like as people come over to your house and experience that, they get to experience solar in an enjoyable way. Whereas we talked earlier about most experiences with solar are not necessarily pleasant, right? Like other than driving by your house, and you probably see those things on top of the roof. But the first thing they do is they probably remind you of how difficult time you had installing them than the savings that they do to you, right? So if you sit down and you're enjoying a nice afternoon under your gazebo, or I mean we're talking with Surya and you're saying like people are asking for different uses of it, right? Like we talked about ADUs, about carports.
Yes. Yeah, it just keeps extending it. And then, we are not just talking now about, these things because our structures are built to last and they are going to be there for 25 years. They have to be Class B structures. And so they are vetted for compliance and they are vetted for harsh environmental conditions, be it hail, be it heavy wind speeds and a lot of snow loads. So when you build a structure of a ground mount, you can actually like extend it, and there are multiple uses of our structures that are validated. First and foremost we use power tiles and not the regular PV modules. So we are hail resistant. We have glass on glass tiles, so that is a very rigid upper layer of the energy producing part of it. But the second part is like the structures themselves are vetted, so you can call them Class B structures. You can convert them into sunrooms, and the patios could be covered on 2 sides or 3 sides, whatever the local restrictions allow you to, and then you can make better use of that stuff. You can convert it into a yoga studio, or you can convert it into an in-law suite, or you can even convert it into an ADU, because at 350 square foot, the only thing the Park Gazebo is lacking is the walls and the plumbing. So all of a sudden, now we are talking about like the homeowner's value proposition and his use for the space being more important than the ROI. Um, by comparison, right? I mean, let's say they want to have an ADU in the backyard for 350 square foot. It costs them close to $128,000 just to put the structure together, and it increases the home value by about $200,000. But if I look at it, right, I mean, converting a Park Gazebo into an ADU practically will half the cost, and you are looking at it and going like, holy cow, now I can really get a lot of value over it, and then forget solar, forget anything else. So the solutions piece, like Roxy was saying a little bit ago, it's like trying to make it relevant to the homeowner and bring back the factor that it's not about like how much money I invest and how much money I get back, but what can I really do. And we are now moving into a value proposition that's focused solely on the value. What can you do with your personal computer? So that's like the analogy that we will have right now, and that's going to significantly change how people view solar.
In the spirit of building empathy with solar, what is next, right? What do you think is the future use future use of not necessarily your product, but any product that could potentially help bridge that gap and build that empathy, that will help accelerate adoption of solar?
So obviously the immediate thing to think about is that every home is at least going to have 1 to 2 EVs. I mean, our transportation fuel will change from fossil fuels to electricity, right? And the best way for us to be prepared for this transition is to have less reliance on public charging networks, because 90% of the time electric cars are charged at home. It's the fact, like I would want my EV to be charged to its maximum range every morning so that I can take care of all my errands. So taking an immediate term extension, our solutions can actually be changed into a PowerPort EV that we plan to launch very soon. This is going to be the immediate transition, but this also is an unmet need in the market where nobody has a branded solution for a garage that includes solar and can act as an EV charging station at home as well. Yes, we can put them in the garage, but like everybody in California knows, nobody parks their car in the garage.
Yeah.
So we are looking at this one, but also the other thing that I have learned as an entrepreneur, and you always keep learning when you talk to the customers, is that there is a big gap in how we are thinking about public charging networks and where the real need is. A lot of the millennials who want to immediately buy and have their first car as an EV live in multifamily homes, and the multifamily homes do not have charging spots. And so we are here having these guys like really saying that I want to go save the environment, but the practical problem of that is that they can't charge it at there, right? So how are we going to help multifamily homes convert their traditional parking spaces and covered garages to something that can be of value to both the residents as well as the business? So that's where I think the PowerPort EV and extensions of the PowerPort EV could come in. There's simultaneously a trend evolving in storage, right? I mean, you want to store the cheapest form of electricity. I mean, solar is going to be the cheapest, and its costs will keep falling. So if you have a cheapest source of electricity, you want to make the best use of it. So storage at the home level, storage at the multifamily level is actually going to be significantly important. And us providing the solutions that can really bring in all of these together, not leaving it to an electrical contractor or a poor business owner to figure it out on their own, is the value proposition that we bring in. And I think that's going to help Arka achieve its purpose.
Yeah, I definitely think that there's a gap in the market. Right now, traditionally, solar has been marketed primarily to owners of the home. And there's significant amount of Hispanics that don't own a home, African Americans that don't own a home. So we're not being marketed to. That we're multi-tenants, we're renting. So how would we charge our vehicles? We're going to go and look for those charging stations out So I think that if there was a multi-tenant solution, you would be attacking a market that is being underserved.
Significantly. I mean, I would say that, we did comment, and we were at a conference in Washington, D.C., talking to some of the things, and, the executives from the Department of Housing, the Department of Transportation, somehow targeted us and asked us a question like, why aren't you like taking care of these issues? And as a solutions company, I think that's where Arka could have maximum impact, because if you look at how solar is still sold, we just taking the thing back to the customer experience, right? I mean, going solar is an electrical contractor activity. You hire an installer and you tell him, or he tells you what he can do for you, and then he slaps together a bunch of components and then brings a solution together. And he himself is like, trying to optimize his own costs in the process. And so there is no really one solution that actually can benefit for it. For a little while, there were some companies that were trying to build solar brands, but they have fizzled out at this point. In our opinion, if you bring a solution together and tell, whether it's a small business owner or a real estate investment trust, that we can provide a solution to them that we stand behind, warranty it, and then give all of the necessary collateral to an installer or a contractor to just put it together, I think that's where the acceleration of adoption really happens. Because everybody trying to figure out the solution on their own is like solving the same problem in smaller rooms versus taking it as a solution and adopting the solution. And maybe in the beginning, it's not 9 on 10 or 10 on 10, but even if we start at 8 on 10, the transformation that it could do is going to be phenomenal. And that's what we want to bring. I mean, at the home level, we want to transform the customer experience. We are building platforms and ecosystems that can make it very easy for the customers to be educated, the customers to understand the value proposition, at the same time, energize the installers to really like say, hey, yes, I understand the solution. It's everything. It's a kit. I just go out there. A lot of the problems that I encounter doing custom solutions is already solved here. So I can get in and get out, and it's going to be a regular activity, right? We have some analogies from adoption of air conditioners and water heaters that have been made very simple right now. All of them still require compliance. All of them still require permits, but the process is much better managed. And yes, I think solar needs to go in that direction, wherein solutions become available and everybody just says, okay, yes, if I can choose from one of these two solutions, I can readily adopt this one and benefit from it.
I'm really looking forward to storage. So as you mentioned, I feel like there's some leaps and bounds happening in that area. And once that element is factored in, that is also going to help with the adoption rate.
Correct. And storage itself, it's a very fascinating topic because as the battery cost drops, it's going to be more affordable. But then let's not forget that we have used vehicles that are coming out of electric vehicles coming out of service, where the batteries are probably not good enough to use the car, but it's pretty good enough for home storage. And now you have the double charging, like where you could actually use your own vehicle as a backup to your house. So I think it's a fascinating topic. It's just it's like you gotta have. It's not a chicken or the egg, but it's really you gotta have the solar adoption first before you can have storage adoption. And I think as a society, we need to actually be more educated and engaged in solar adoption.
Very true. And the maximization of energy generation is the first step towards energy independence. There is no doubt in my mind that every home can use the maximum amount of space available to it and use BIPV technology to maximize energy generation in there, right? Just to give you some example, I use about 980 units of energy every month, and I have one EV. Now, if I were to have two EVs, this would jump to like 1,250 or even 1,300 units a month. And to compensate that and completely be energy independent, I would need a 9 kilowatt PV system. Now, all facets of my roof are not going to be like giving me the ability to maximize energy generation, but that's where technologies like solar roofs and BIPV and Arka solutions like the Power Gazebo and Power Patio and the Power Port EV all come in handy to maximize energy generation. And that brings us to the necessary condition of being energy independent. The sufficiency piece comes from the solar storage. I mean, how much of this energy can I use during the day while I'm away? And trying to charge my EV at the night, all of these things can actually be we can address those with the storage. And like solar, storage also has made rapid strides, and it benefited from the EV revolution. Because, like you said, the core battery technology is all the same. So every country on the planet with a vision on the future has actually started to put storage plants together, and they're building gigawatt hours of storage plants, right? So as a additional advantage, it's also going to lower the energy costs, the storage energy costs significantly. And we can play into that and then start building additional solutions that integrate solar and storage in the very near future, and then provide to homeowners a significant value. So that's where I think we will take the next step in making homes energy independent, completely aiding the EV transition and the EV revolution, and still not having people think about something like, okay, what am I spending and how much money am I going to get back?
Well said. Energy independence is going to be key to EV transition. Well, Surya, that was a fascinating podcast. We really appreciate you being here. Valuable information, a lot of good knowledge. We thank you for being here, Josie, as always.
I mean, I'm always pro tech. I'm always pro humanity. Very positive thinker, and I feel like this is the step. We need sustainability. We need alternate sources of energy. Solar is definitely going to be one of the main ones, and we need to adopt it as humans. And whatever is blocking us from doing that is a problem to solve. And that's why humans are so great, because we have people like Surya solving these problems every day. So thank you for that work.
And Surya, if you were to leave us with one sentence to help that perspective change from the consumer, what would that be?
I think it's like I said, the transition to energy independence starts at home. That's my firm belief. And if I were to leave with that one sentence, we always start thinking about energy independence as something that you could do with massive efforts. But I think the real transformation towards energy independence happens at home. So the one sentence I would probably give you is energy independence starts at home. And that, I think, should be the slogan for us to go forward. In a lot of other ways, trying to solve problems with step changes is difficult. But trying to adopt it in smaller habitual changes is more feasible, and that's what really brings in the transformation.
How's that?
Very well said. Surya, thank you very much for being with us today.
I appreciate the opportunity. Thank you both for being gracious hosts and a lot of inquisitive questions. I'm normally not in this mode of sharing so much stuff, but I think you brought the real passion that Arka has for this one. So thank you very much for being so good hosts.
We appreciate your attendance.
Thank you. And like always, share, like, and subscribe. And I'll see you next time for the next episode.
Have a good one, everyone.
Have a good one.